Alrighty, Borderlands 4 is just about here. I got a review copy of the game and have been playing over the course of the past week. Got about 30 hours or so in now, and well, let's talk about it. All right, so what is Borderlands 4? I mean, it probably needs no introduction. This is the next installment in the Borderlands franchise. Now, as someone who played a lot of the first game and equally enjoyed the second game, but for whatever reason, and I couldn't really place my finger on it, like I couldn't give you a good explanation as to why, but Borderlands 3 just didn't hook me. I remember playing it for like a couple of hours and then moving on to another thing. Now, that could have been because I didn't really enjoy the game, or it could have just been that there was something else at the time that I really wanted to play. So coming into Borderlands 4, I was like, you know, I don't expect a lot, but the early trailers that I saw were looking pretty good, and I liked the look of the gameplay. And my God, am I so happy that I played it, because it's got some issues. Like, there are some big issues that may very well drag down the score pretty hard when this comes out and gets in the public's hand. Playing the game has been a lot of fun. This is more than I expected, and I have genuinely enjoyed it, barring a few glaring issues, which we'll get into. Okay, so it all starts out, you pick a Vault Hunter. There are 4 available. I went with Vex, who is this like siren lady of the void. She's basically like a witch or something in the Borderlands universe, as far as I'm aware. You run through a tutorial where you do a little bit of an escape with the help of an accomplice. In the process, learning the basics of course, movement and combat, some of the game's initial systems. And then you get tossed out into the open world, waking up on a beach. Claptrap is there in need of your help, with some of his classic humor woven in between his request for your assistance, and then off you go. And it's really from here on out that you are now in a full open world Borderlands game. And I'm not sure why, but I wasn't under the impression that this was a full-on open world game, but it 100% is. This is Borderlands open world game. It's arrived, and it's pretty massive. In fact, most review builds, they'll come with like an info sheet that gives some basic details about the game. And as I was going through that, it said that it should take you like roughly 4 hours on average to reach the first major boss fight in the main story quest. I didn't get there until about 12 hours in, so just 3x the average time according to them. And that's because there was like so much going on in the open world, all of these different side quests, points of interest to explore, collectibles, events that popped up, and I just like wasn't focused on beelining the main story quest. So yeah, it took me 12 hours to get to the first major boss fight, and that was only exploring like a third of the first big zone in the game. So this is a big open world game as far as I can tell. It's also one big fully seamless space. Now there are some borders along the edges, and there'll be like certain areas like mountain peaks in the middle of the zones that you actually can't climb up to physically. But I would say a majority of the play space, like at least 90% of the surface area of these open zones, is fully 100% explorable. There are 0 loading screens as you move about. In fact, I think I've seen a total of 1 loading screen in the 30 hours that I've played of this game so far, and that was in loading into like what was essentially a big dungeon area at the end of the first big chain in the main story questline. But other than that, all of the 30, besides that 1 loading screen area, the 30 other hours that I've played, or the rest of that, let's say 29 other hours that I've played, has been just like exploring the open world, doing all this open world stuff without loading screens. Again, I didn't realize that, but yes, this is a full open world game. That's what this is. So you're gonna go around the zones, and it's gonna have a lot of the open world stuff that you expect. You got points of interest, you got various events and encounters, there are collectibles, main story quest line, of course, and then tons of side quests and even bounties, a bounty system in the game. So let's go through a bit of those things here. First, with the points of interest, these are all over the place, and pretty much all of them will have some sort of an objective to unlock that gives you collectibles or currency towards progression. So essentially, as you move through the world, it's going to lift the fog of war on your map, and then on the edges, as you get somewhat close, you'll start to see points of interest popping up as question marks, and then as you get closer and actually arrive at those areas, they will then be revealed as to exactly what they are. Many different types of enemy bases, camps, and strongholds, all very strongly themed to like whatever the area is. There are also dungeon-like areas in the game. These are these abandoned mines that typically typically require you to do some certain thing before you can gain access to them. Like there's some that are covered by a special shield that requires this like locust bomb, and you have to find a locust bomb in the nearby area, bring it over, toss it on the shield, and that's the only thing that can lift the shield. You can't otherwise shoot it with your regular weapons and void elementals or grenades or whatever. You have to find a special thing, opens access to the mine, and then you go into the mine, and yeah, they're basically like dungeons. You go through various rooms with difficult bosses, elites, badasses, as I guess they're called in this game, and then usually there'll be some boss encounter at the very end. On top of that, there are of course vaults. We do play as vault hunters after all. That's like the main theme behind all of the Borderlands games, and in this game you'll go around collecting fragments in certain areas. They'll be hidden in spots in the environment, typically at a point of interest, and you get enough and you can eventually use those to enter one of the vaults, which you also have to find. There's NPC towns and villages, some of these with some side quest giving NPCs, others tied to the main story quest line. They're like central hubs that have a whole bunch of different things, like a respec bench, various vending machines, storage container and or bank, and then a special gold chest, which I still haven't figured out how you open. I don't know if that was the thing where you need those special keys from where Pitchford tweets out or whatever the hell that stuff is. And then there are these safe houses, which are more or less your main source of fast travel location. A few of these scattered among every zone. These will also have vending machines to sell the items that you've collected, as well as where most of the bounty boards are located. And every single safe house that I found has had a bounty board with bounties in the nearby area. You know, go here, kill a boss, collect an item, and bring it back. The open world is also full of tons of collectibles, various things here, and most of them will give you a currency towards the game's STU system, which is how you unlock more capacity for things. So you'll have to like find a deadbolt or a vault symbol or complete an event in an area. It's going to give you some currency to unlock things in the STU system, which we'll touch on when we get to progression here in a minute. And then also in the environment, there will just be various kinds of loot chests and caches that you will come across that pop out a bunch of guns and other items for you to collect. Boss encounters. So there's a couple of variations here. There are static boss encounters at certain set locations, typically some sort of a boss arena. Now, in most cases, either the main story quest or one of the various side quests will lead you to these encounters. And then after you complete it for the first time, you can actually rerun them. There's a marker nearby the boss's arena. These are referred to as Moxie's Big Encore. You go interact with that, and then it lets you fight the boss again. But on top of those static boss locations, the game also has these dynamic boss encounters all over the place. In fact, as far as I could tell, they have a chance to appear at pretty much any major point of interest in the game. And what will happen is you'll be walking around, and then all of a sudden you'll see this big sphere or this big dome that appears again near a point of interest with a boss inside. And these have been fairly difficult encounters, comparable to like the main story quest line end of a chain boss fights. Lots of health bars of the various types, because there's like armor, there's regular health, there's energy shield, and then there's like meat armor or whatever. And then they'll have different attacks and combos and supporting minions that they summon. And it's been my experience that these dynamic boss encounters have been like some of the best sources of like high yields of loot drops, just like lots of loot and lots of high rarity items coming from these encounters. And I just love, like, you'll just be walking around and you'll see these domes pop up and you'll be like, oh, there's a boss in there. I'll go fight it. I'll kill it and I'll get a bunch of loot. It's been a nice addition beyond like the static boss locations. Really interesting. There's also some dynamic events. So periodically you will see like enemies fall from the sky, or you'll see a bunch of wildlife emerge from a cave system as you walk by. But every so often, as you're moving through the environment, what was a moment ago an empty play space can all of a sudden be flooded with enemies in an instant. And the game does do the monster closet system like they have done in prior Borderlands games. And if you don't know what I mean by that, is there are like set locations where monsters come out of. So this can be like the entrance to a cave, or the side of like a shipping container, or the back of a vehicle. And it's represented in this game typically by like a black box that you can just see and enemies just spawn out of periodically. In fact, I think I first was introduced to the concept of a monster closet in Borderlands 1, and they've continued it all the way up here to Borderlands 4. So again, it's a full open world game, and it's broken up into several named zones that are then further divided into more distinctly themed areas. So you start out the game waking up on the beach on the edge of the far fields, and this is predominantly like a grassy plains region with some wooded areas mixed in and a few cliffs. The whole game is actually rather cliffy. There's a lot of mountainous terrain in all of the biomes, if you will. And then the main story quest line is going to take you from that that starting area, through it a bit, and then eventually into the other biomes. You're going to explore and eventually come into the snow-capped mountainous region, as well as a rocky desert. And then there's a few others beyond that, but I don't want to spoil all of the games for you. But yeah, the main story quests, they'll take you through to some big major points of interest, because the game does have a variety of size of their POIs. And then there are some that are rather gargantuan that, again, tend to have a big boss encounter at the end. As mentioned, I am playing as Vex, who is the Void Siren. So the action skill that I've been using is the ability to summon this cat minion Trouble, who will attack enemies, and then I've got like a bunch of perks that enhance the pet, as well as also buffing me and the damage of my gun, as well as my defenses, my shields, my health regeneration, all of that. Now, the other two options for Vex, that what you have for your action skills or your class abilities, there's Dead Ringer, where you can summon up these clones that do different things, or Incarnate, which will transform Vex, healing her, as well as adding a new damage dealing active ability to use for the buff's duration. Now, you can have one action skill equipped at a time. So each of the Vault Hunters comes with 3 action skills. You can have one of them equipped, and you're going to use that periodically in between shooting and tossing out grenades. This is mostly a first-person shooter. You're spending a lot of time shooting and swapping between your 4 equipped weapons, whatever those are, and then you're throwing out your class ability in between. And then the classes also have like special passives to them. Like, for example, Vex, she attunes herself to the element of whatever weapon she's using. So if I've got like an electric gun in my hand, it then changes the elemental damage of my ability. So of my pet, my cat minion will all of a sudden deal the electric damage, or if I have a fire weapon, she'll do fire damage. So every one of the classes has all that stuff. In fact, the 3 other Vault Hunters, which are an Exo Soldier, a Forge Knight, and a Gravator, honestly, I had a hard time picking because those 3 also seem really cool. I'm presuming that I'm going to be playing at least one of them as I continue to play the game. Like, I'll probably max out the Siren Vex and then try another one, just because they all seem really cool with their own unique playstyle twist beyond just the shooting and tossing of grenades that you're doing, right? Now, this is a looter shooter, so let's talk about the loot. You're going to find all sorts of chests and containers in the environment. Majority of these will be like ammo refills or dropping currency, with the occasional loot chest, probably about like 1 or 2 per point of interest. Lots of the loot that you're going to be getting, like the actual item drops, will be coming from boss kills or difficult enemies, like those elite variants. Tons of guns in the game. That's what Borderlands has always been about, because they've got so many different modifications and twists. It's not just like regular kinetic weapon. You don't just have like your basic SMG, your basic assault rifle. Those do exist, but they do a lot of twist and kind of funky variations of those things with different elementals and different types of attacks, kind of combining things in interesting ways. They have the whole elemental system, so you've got like the physical damage, the fire incinerator damage, the electric shock damage, the radiation damage, and there's like 3 or 4 others, frozen cryo damage, and it all plays into like this kind of rock, paper, scissors system, where one damage type will be really good against a certain type of defenses and really weak against others. So for example, the electric damage, the shock damage, is really good against energy shields, but not so good against basic health and armor, whereas the radiation damage is really good against armor, but not so good against the other things. So especially when you're playing on the harder difficulties, which I'm playing on the hardest that's available initially in the first campaign playthrough, which is hard. You get to the point after the first few hours where you got to be paying attention to like what type of health bar does the enemy that I'm shooting at have, and many of them, as you keep progressing further, will have multiple. So they might start with an energy shield and then have armor and maybe 2 stacks of armor, and then you finally get to their health, or some various combination in between. So you got to pay attention to those and then counteract that with the elemental damage that you're doing, whether that's from your guns. Many guns will have multiple types, so maybe I have like an assault rifle that does physical damage, but then I can swap to an alternate fire mode that does fire damage. In fact, I've got an SMG that shoots physical and then turns into a flamethrower, or I've got a sniper rifle that shoots physical and then can turn into a radiation rocket launcher, like all sorts of different things. That's a big part of what Borderlands has always done, and they're continuing to do it in this game as well. And then there are also different manufacturers, and those tend to come with their own characteristics. Like there's a manufacturer that makes it so that whenever you reload the gun, it throws the gun out and it has it explode. Sometimes it explodes into multiple grenades. Beyond the guns, you'll also be finding and collecting rep rep kits, which is your healing. These can come with all sorts of special boosts. Like I've got a yellow rep kit right now that gives me the blood siphon ability. Whenever I kill an enemy, it converts any excess damage that I dealt into these healing orbs that then seek you out or your allies and heal you. Super good. And then you also have various types of grenades that have different functionalities and elemental types. You've got energy shields with different perks. You've got different enhancements which provide boost to your guns and weapon damage. And then there are also class mods that you eventually find. I started getting those at about 15 hours into the game, and these come with increased stats and passive boost for the game's 4 different classes. We got a few different progression systems for character. You've got leveling up in your skill tree, so you're going to gain XP as you kill enemies and complete quests. Leveling up will then give you a skill point to spend in your class tree. For each class, remember, as I said, there are 3 action skills, abilities that you can pick from to have slotted. Each of those has a base tree, and then once you spend enough points in that base tree, which gives all sorts of perks, it then lets you specialize further into 3 different directions. And then beyond any passive boost that you get in there, there's also slots for these augments and capstone skills, which come with big modifiers for whatever action skill that tree that you have invested in. The game does have respecking, so if you want to swap action skills, like you invest in one for a while, you get far down a tree and maybe you start specializing, and eventually you realize, I don't like this so much, you do have the ability to respec and try the other action skills for the cost of a little bit of money. The other form of progression comes via the SDU, so you're going to gain this currency by completing certain open world tasks, like doing these propaganda speaker events, or by finding collectibles like the vault symbols out in the open world. And then you spend this currency that can let you increase your ammo capacity for each class of weapon, so the rifle, the sniper, the SMG, the shotgun, and the pistol. You can add more backpack slots, more lost loot capacity, which is like if items drop and you don't pick them up, it'll show up here, and then also to increase your bank storage. And then finally, they do have a whole cosmetic aspect of this game. This is just vanity customization. You can change the appearance of your Vault Hunter, of your Echo 4, which is the robot that shows up when you're doing certain things, like when you die and respawn, or when you scan the environment, or when you interact with objects that need to be like hacked. The Echo 4 shows up then, and you can change the customization for that. There's also visual customization for your vehicles and your weapons as well. So most of the quests that you complete in the game, especially the side quest and the bounties, they're gonna reward cosmetic unlocks for one of those 4 categories. There's like a ton of cosmetic unlocks for the Vault Hunter, the Echo 4, the vehicle, and the weapons. Like, I can't believe how many cosmetic unlocks there are in this game. Okay, so that is the basic like overview of the game, its systems and features, and yeah, this is Borderlands. It's a looter shooter, but it's full open world game at the same time. For the most part, I've really enjoyed it. There are some cons I want to talk about though. Number one, right out front, performance was like horrendous initially. I would say for the first day into the second day, it almost felt unplayable. Like, it was awful. The biggest thing was like regular consistent hitching that was happening. This appeared to be the game loading, whether it was loading in shaders or textures or new environments. But the first couple hours, the hitching was happening like, it wasn't on a regular interval. So it wasn't like once every 30 seconds or once every minute, but it was consistently happening as I was moving through the world several times every like 10 or so minutes. It felt like it was the game loading something in and then hitching in the process. My game would freeze up for like 1 to 3 seconds. The frame rate would spike really high and then it would settle. Now, on top of that hitching, the general performance, the frame rate was highly variable. It wasn't great. Now, what happened though, which was interesting, was the more I played, the less and less the hitching happened, which is why I think it might have been related to the game loading stuff in. That's just my assumption, not knowing the technicalities behind it. But the hitching slowed and happened less and less frequently until it eventually stopped. Like, I've been playing the past few days, zero hitching. The hitching thing stopped. And then also, the frame rate has been getting better, but two things have happened. Number one, there have been patches every single day. In fact, just today, I think there were 3 separate patches. Like, I played the game throughout the course of the day. I would shut down, I'd go have lunch, I'd come back, there was another patch. I'd take a break, I'd like walk the dog, came back, there was another patch. So there have been progressively like new patches coming out throughout the course of the past week. But also, I tweaked a bunch of settings. Like I turned on DLSS, I turned on frame generation, and I turned down, I think I was at very high, and I turned down the general baseline settings to high, tweaked a few things like reduce shadows and stuff. So it's hard for me to tell if the patches that have come out have been what resulted in the better baseline performance, or if it was just that I turned on DLSS and frame gen. I'm not entirely sure, to be honest with you. It started out really, really bad, and I'll just say this, like, if a majority of the player base has anywhere near what I experienced those first few days, I expect this game to get like really terribly review bombed. But if they have addressed the performance issues, say it was as a result of the patches that have come through, then that will be good, because frankly, that's like my biggest complaint. Also in the cons, I would say like the humor is very hit or miss. I mean, and mostly not great. Couple of moments that I have laughed out loud, like there were a few chuckle-worthy bits of dialogue and stuff. But I mean, I don't know, humor is really hard in games, and games like this that lean into humor, it's just so subjective, and most times it seems like it doesn't really land. It's just tough to make a good, funny game that most people can agree is funny. It doesn't happen it very rarely happens. I don't really have any instances off the top of my head. People like Psychonauts, right? But maybe besides that, I don't really know. So, and you know, whatever. Like I can mostly ignore it. The real annoyance for me though came from the fact that a lot of the quest, even just the side quest, will have like extended periods, and I'm talking like 5 straight minutes of the NPC talking, delivering me these like not really funny lines that I just have to like sit there and listen to. The game does this radio thing where if you walk away from the NPC, the dialogue still happens and you'll hear it through the radio. So sometimes I'd walk away and start fighting things nearby as he kept like telling me his stupid shitty jokes about his backstory and how he's missing his leg or whatever. A lot of times these quests would, in between like 2 straight minutes of the NPC talking, I'd be like, hit this switch, and then he talks for another 1 to 2 minutes, and then flip this lever, and then jump up there and get me this item and bring it back to me. Like, there was just so much downtime. It should just not be in the game, honestly, especially for side quest. Like, I should just turn to my side quest, and if you got something to say it while I do other things, and then that's it. But there was just a lot. It really messed up the pacing for me, and I just felt like annoyed as I was sitting there listening to this like not funny, kind of crappy dialogue that took way too long, but I kind of had to stay in the area because half the time I would have to interact with something. So instead of walking away to shoot so I wasn't bored, and then walking back so I could interact with the thing, I just stood there most of the time and was like, I want to be playing this game because I really like playing this game, but I'm having to deal with this in the process. So yeah, that's a bit much. And also to that note, I will say, I think the first few hours felt a bit slow, and the open world felt quite empty initially, with like too much space in between points of interest and too much downtime between fights. Now, eventually you get access to a speeder bike, which just feels like the hover bike in Destiny, basically. I mean, it's great. I love it. And at that point, the world feels smaller, and it doesn't feel as big, and the pacing feels better. But yeah, it started off a little slow in conjunction with those drowning on side quests, especially. It kind of didn't leave the best first impression. But as I kept on playing, that completely turned around. Going into the pros, because I am predominantly positive about this game. If the performance issues get resolved for most people, presuming I can deal with the bad humor and whatever, the poor pacing of the quest, I'll get over it, because I love playing this game. The gameplay is super fun. Guns feel amazing to use. So do the abilities. And the whole combat flow of going in, shooting, swapping weapons to the different elements to combat the enemies, tossing out grenades, using your abilities, that combined with just like great movement in this game. You have got a double jump, a dash, the ability to hover midair, there's a grapple hook, and a drop attack. Feels good just moving around, shooting, and engaging in combat in this game. I love the open world. It was a really nice surprise. I wasn't expecting it to be as open and big as it is. There's just loads of different activities and things to do, various points of interest, the quest within them, the bounties, the side quest, the dynamic boss encounters, the static boss encounters. It's just good. It's an open world Borderlands game, and it feels good to play. Boss fights have also been really interesting. I've really enjoyed the loot. I found quite a few different interesting gun combinations and things. I would also say that playing on hard has been perfect. It's like just the right amount of difficulty. I am not just smashing through enemies, and they're challenging enough without feeling overly bullet spongy. I think with the exception of like a couple of those dynamic bosses that took like 10 minutes to kill kill. For the most part, it's felt just hard enough, and I've really appreciated that. And also, just like, I've been wanting a new, good PvE-focused loot game to play, and Borderlands 4, for me, has just fit that bill perfectly. Like, barring those slight annoyances with the missions dragging on and those performance issues in the first few days, overall, I've really, really enjoyed it. So, basically, at this point, I'm sitting here hoping that the recent patches that came through will iron out a lot of the performance issues for most other players, because otherwise, if it doesn't, I think that's going to be just unacceptable for a lot of people. But if it does, this seems good. But yeah, man, overall, I'm pleasantly surprised. I've enjoyed this. I feel like I've been playing like a lot of extraction games and other games recently that I was like, man, if only this were a PvE focused like looter shooter game. It's been a while since we've had a good one of these. And again, with all those caveats in mind, I think the core of this game itself, the gameplay, the open world, the systems and features, how it feels to play the game, the movement and all of that, I still have more game to play. But from what I've played so far, I've been really enjoying it. So, yeah, that's it for today. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. And once this game comes out, which I think should be the day after this video goes live, we'll see how it goes. We'll see. Hoping for the best. That's all for now, though. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys later.